Picture this: a sweet looking little grandma with glasses, always smiling, always baking pies. The kind of lady you would trust instantly, right? But what if I told you this same woman was secretly one of America's most notorious serial killers? Today we're diving into the twisted life of Nannie Doss, aka the Giggling Granny, who earned her nickname for smiling and laughing even while confessing to murdering her entire family. Buckle up, this one's dark and honestly kind of shocking. And hey, we're friends here, so grab a snack. Maybe just not pie. You'll see why soon. So before Nannie Doss ever became the sweet-looking grandma next door, who was secretly poisoning everyone, she was just a little girl named Nancy Hazel growing up in Alabama, and honestly, her childhood was pretty awful. Like, the kind of upbringing where you just know it's gonna leave some serious scars. Nannie was born November 4th of 1905 in a small rural town called Blue Mountain, Alabama. Her family was dirt poor, living in a simple, drafty house, and there were 5 kids in total. Nannie and her siblings spent most of their time either working the land or trying to stay out of the father's way. Her father, James Hazel, was, well, let's just say not father of the year. He was described as strict and he was physically abusive and totally controlling. He wouldn't let them have normal lives. School, forget about it. Nope. The Hazel kids were pulled out of class constantly to work the farm, and James believed education was a waste of time, especially for girls. Can you imagine being 7 or 8 years old being told, hey, we actually don't care if you know how to read or not, go out and work the farm? It's absolutely wild, but it was a reality for Nannie. Nannie's mother, Lou, wasn't exactly a source of comfort either. She was more passive, and while she endured James's abuse herself, she didn't really ever step in to protect the kids. And when Nannie was about 7 years old, something happened that she would later blame for all the terrible things she did as an adult. She was on a train trip with her family, and the train made a sudden stop, throwing her forward. Nannie's head slammed hard against the metal bar on the seat in front of her, and this wasn't a small bump, it was a serious head injury. She was reportedly unconscious for a while, and afterwards she suffered from chronic headaches, blackouts, and mood swings for the rest of her life. If you've ever seen a true crime documentary, you know head trauma can be a big red flag. Later in life, Nannie would point to this train accident as the moment everything changed. Whether that's true or not, we'll never know, but it's worth noting that severe head injuries are often linked to personality changes and violent impulses. But there was one thing that always brought her joy in life, and that was romance magazines. She'd sneak away and devour the love story sections, daydreaming about handsome men and fairy tale marriages. These cheap melodramatic magazines were her escape from the harsh reality of her life. And honestly, I get it. I mean, if your dad's making you work on a farm all day and your life is basically a prison, of course you're gonna get obsessed with these romantic fantasy stories. But Nannie took it to a whole other level. These magazines basically became her entire personality, and by the time she was a teenager, Nannie had this idealized vision of what her future would look like. A loving husband who would sweep her off her feet and rescue her from her father's control. Spoiler alert, that did not happen at all. In fact, her first marriage would be just as miserable as her childhood, maybe even worse. And it's during those years that we start seeing glimpses of the killer Nannie would become. Nannie met Charlie Braggs while working at the local linen factory. She was young, naive, and desperate to escape her father's control, and Charlie was one of the few men that she was even allowed to talk to. And after just a couple months of dating, they were married. It wasn't exactly a love story. Nannie later admitted that she barely knew Charlie at all, but she saw marriage as her ticket out of her father's house and she jumped at it. Which I totally get. She was 16, living a nightmare, and here's this guy offering her an escape. Of course she went for it. But here's the thing, leaving one bad situation doesn't mean you won't land right in another. The newlyweds moved into Charlie's home, but they didn't get the romantic privacy Nannie had imagined. They lived with Charlie's mother, who was overbearing and constantly meddling in their marriage. She treated Nannie more like an unwanted roommate than a daughter-in-law. And Charlie was no better. He quickly revealed himself to be unfaithful and emotionally distant. He would disappear for days, drinking and cheating, leaving Nannie alone in the house with his mother. Like, picture this, you're 16, you just got married, and now you're stuck living with a mother-in-law who hates you and a husband who's never around. That is not the dream life that Nannie had in mind. Despite the unhappy marriage, Nannie and Charlie had 4 daughters in quick succession, and money was tight, the house was crowded, and the stress levels were off the chart, and Nannie was overwhelmed, but she kept up her appearances, and she wanted people to think that she was the perfect wife and mother. But behind closed doors, things were tense. In 1927, tragedy struck. 2 of Nannie's young daughters, Melvina and Florine, died suddenly. Doctors said that it was food poisoning, but no one looked too closely at the time. And here's where things start to feel off. Because, how likely is it that 2 children die of food poisoning back to back in the same house? But remember, this was the 1920s and autopsies were not common. After the death, Charlie became suspicious of Nannie. He claimed that she was becoming strange and started to fear for his own safety. He eventually took their surviving daughters and left Nannie, moving in with his own family and filing for divorce. Looking back, many historians believe these deaths were Nannie's first murders. She had a pattern, using arsenic, a poison you could buy very easily at the local store, to get rid of people who stood in her way and caused her stress. And arsenic, it's like the serial killer starter pack. Tasteless, odorless, and at the time, completely legal. People used it for everything, from rat poison to tonics. You could literally walk into a drugstore, grab some, no questions asked. So yeah, if you wanted to kill someone in the 1920s, arsenic was your best friend. But whether she killed the children or not, Charlie was out. The marriage ended in divorce, and for the first time, Nannie was on her own. So now we're at the point of Nannie Doss's life where the pattern really starts to lock in. She's no longer this scared little girl from Alabama, and she's not the naive teenager hoping that marriage will save her. By this point, Nannie's learned that when life doesn't go her way, she could take matters into her own hands, and trust me, she does. After divorcing Charlie Briggs, Nannie was free to start over. But she didn't take time to heal or figure out her life. She just jumped right back into romance, using those lonely heart ads she loved so much. These were basically like classified ads in newspapers where single people would write love letters to find love. It's like the 1920s version of Tinder, but way slower and a lot sketchier. You throw your name, address, and a short description out there and hope for the best. Can you imagine doing that today? No thanks, I'll pass. And she got lots of responses. Men from all over would write to her, and she was charming enough to hook them fast. What they didn't know is if they disappointed her, she had a secret weapon: arsenic. Through the lonely heart ads, Nannie met Frank Harrelson, a factory worker from Jacksonville, Alabama. They married quickly, and after a while, things seemed good. But Frank had a dark side. He was an alcoholic and could be violent when he drank. And one night after a particularly bad fight, Frank assaulted Nannie, and she later said that this was the moment she decided she was done. And if there's one thing we know about Nannie, it's when she's done with you, it's over. Literally. So she spiked his drink with arsenic, and Frank died in 1945. It was ruled a natural causes because at that time, nobody was looking for poison. And Nannie didn't waste time. Soon after Frank's death, she married Arlie Lanning from North Carolina. Arlie was also a heavy drinker, and their marriage was rocky from the start. But Nannie played the part of the devoted wife perfectly. People in town actually liked her and thought that she was super sweet. And then Arlie died suddenly in 1952, and doctors said it was heart failure. But you and I both know that Nannie had her arsenic on standby. And I mean, at this point, if someone drops dead around her, it's not a coincidence. After Arlie's death, Nannie inherited his house, but instead of living in it, she mysteriously signed it over to her sister, who, wait for it, also died shortly after. The house was then sold and Nannie pocketed the money. By now, Nannie was firmly entrenched in her pattern, and she moved to Kansas and met Richard Morton, a businessman, again through the lovely Hearts ad. Morton wasn't abusive, but he was unfaithful. He cheated on Nannie constantly, and she was not having it. She poisoned him with arsenic in 1953. To be completely honest, for a husband number 4 and you're still cheating on her, read the room. Nannie's last husband, Samuel Doss, was a church-going widower from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Unlike the others, Samuel was strict but not outwardly cruel. He had rules. He didn't like her romance magazines or her habit of spending money, and that was enough to irritate Nannie. When he banned her from buying more romance magazines, she snapped. And honestly, I might do the same if my husband ever tells me to not buy more smut books. But in September of 1954, Nannie spiked Samuel's coffee with arsenic, and he became violently ill but survived the first attempt. Doctors suspected food poisoning and sent him home from the hospital. And this part blows my mind. Instead of just letting him recover and try again, she doubled down. She tried again immediately. No waiting period. Not letting him recover. Nothing. She couldn't wait. As soon as Samuel was home, Nannie laced his coffee again, and this time the dose was fatal. By the time Samuel died, Nannie had a trail of bodies behind her. Multiple husbands, family members, even in-laws. But no one connected the dots yet. She was so good at playing the sweet, innocent widow that no one questioned the sudden illnesses around her. And that's what makes her so terrifying, right? She was invisible as a killer. People saw her as this friendly, happy grandma that baked pies and smiled all the time. Meanwhile, she's literally poisoning people to death. Samuel's death would be the one that finally caught up to her. And by this point in Nannie Doss's story, the pattern was clear, at least to us, but in real time, nobody suspected a thing. And that's what makes this part so chilling. Nannie left a trail of victims behind her, all while smiling and playing the perfect wife, daughter, sister, and grandmother. It's like she had a mask on the whole time. Nannie is officially linked to 11 murders, but some experts think the number could be much higher. She wasn't ever killing for revenge or because she was angry. She was killing people who stood in the way of her comfort and money. When Samuel Doss collapsed and died on October 12th of 1954, it didn't look like a normal death. He had been hospitalized just days earlier for mysterious stomach illness, and now here he was, dead after coming home. Samuel's doctor, Dr. E.P. Carter, wasn't buying it. He was suspicious of Samuel's illness had appeared suddenly and didn't match the typical pattern, and Carter pushed for an autopsy. And honestly, thank God he did, because if he hadn't, Nannie probably would have walked away again and moved on to husband number 6. The autopsy revealed massive amounts of arsenic in Samuel's system. Not just a trace amount, this was a lethal dose, enough to kill several people. There was no doubt now that Samuel had been murdered. Police went straight to Nannie and didn't have to look far. She was calmly at home, acting like nothing had happened, and investigators questioned her, and it didn't take long for her sweet grandma act to start cracking. When confronted with the evidence, Nannie didn't scream or cry or deny it. She just smiled and then confessed. Imagine being that detective in that room. You're expecting a fight or some tears, and instantly you get a grandma calmly admitting to killing her husband with a smile on her face. It is nightmare fuel. And once Nannie started talking, she didn't stop. She confessed not to just Samuel's murder, but to killing at least 4 of her 5 husbands. She admitted to poisoning family members, including her mother and children. And the whole time she was giggling, and this is where she earned her nickname, the Giggling Granny. Reporters said she would literally laugh while describing how she poisoned people. And not a nervous laugh, but a genuine, gleeful giggle. I don't even know how you do that. And the press couldn't get enough of her. Newspapers splashed her photo on the front page, a plump, bespectacled grandmother with a sweet smile sitting calmly as she confessed to multiple murders. The cognitive dissonance is insane. You're looking at a picture thinking she looks like someone who would bake you cookies, and she's describing how she laced her husband's coffee with arsenic. And that's when the country really started to realize that evil doesn't look the way that you expect it to. The story shocked the nation, and people could not wrap their head around the idea of a grandmotherly woman being a serial killer. Reporters flooded Oklahoma, and every little detail of Nannie's life was suddenly public. Neighbors described her sweet and friendly, and friends said they couldn't believe it. Even some of the surviving family members admitted they never suspected her. It's like she fooled everybody, and honestly, that was part of her power, and she used that to get away with murder for decades. Nannie was charged with the murder of Samuel Doss, and rather than risk the death penalty, she pled guilty. In May 1955, she was sentenced to life in prison without parole. She reportedly enjoyed the attention even behind bars. She loved reading newspaper articles about herself, and she didn't seem to feel any remorse for her victims. It's almost like she liked being famous, like, oh hey, everyone finally noticed me, which is so messed up when you think about how many lives she destroyed. Nannie Doss spent the rest of her life at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary, where she was known for her ever present smile, and she died of leukemia in 1965 at the age of 59. Even in her final days, she never expressed regret.
Most of her was my mama.
Mom?
Yes, sir.
May I call you Nannie?
That's right.
Where were you born, Nannie?
I was born in Alabama. Anderson.
Did you have a large family?
I had 4 sisters and a brother.
Were you rich?
No, sir. Farmer.
Did you work in the field?
Yes, sir.
How long?
All my life.
How old were you when you first got married?
16.
And how many times were you married?
5.
Why are you in the penitentiary now?
Oh, the claims I killed my husband.
Which, your last husband?
Yes, sir.
Did they say you killed any more?
Yes,
There's
sir.
your other husband? Which other?
3 of them.
Did you?
No, sir.
How did they say you claimed they say you killed her?
They claimed I poisoned them.
But you say you didn't poison her?
I didn't.
Thank you very much, Nannie Doss.
Too.
And now we're at the end of Nannie Doss's story, or at least the part where she's no longer free to hurt anyone else. But what's wild is how her case didn't shock the world around her, it left this lasting rippling in true crime history. Because Nannie's story wasn't just about one woman and her victims, it was about how easy evil can hide in plain sight. And that, my friends, is the story of Nannie Doss, the sweet-looking, giggling granny who turned out to be one of the most prolific female serial killers in American history. Creepy, right? Because she's the last person you'd suspect. And honestly, this one also hits hard because it's a reminder that evil doesn't look like what we expect. It's not the scary guy in the alley or the villain in the movie. Sometimes it's the person you think you can trust. So yeah, if you're ever offered pie by a stranger, maybe double check who baked it first, okay? I'm just saying. And if you made it this far, thanks for hanging out with me, and don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the deep dive. It really helps the channel out, and subscribe if you want more true crime and creepy content like this one. And if you know someone who loves true crime as much as we do, share this with them. The more the merrier. That's it for this one. Stay safe, trust your gut, and I will see you in the next deep dive. Bye, friends!